Bonjour tout le monde, bonjour à tous. Thank you for clicking on this video. This is going to be part one of a very important series. Now look, without further ado, let's jump straight into it. But first, for those who don't know who I am Alistair Nzekio, and this is my story. Okay, so before we start, I think it's important that we clarify a very important distinction between narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. Now, the two words are used interchangeably, and I've made that mistake multiple times. I'm sure you have. But there is a slight difference, even though they are extremely similar. For example, narcissism is a personality trait. Narcissistic personality disorder is a personality disorder. It's a mental disorder. Now, both cases exhibit similar behavioral traits. However, how can you really tell between someone that is a narcissist as the personality trait and someone that has the disorder, the narcissistic personality disorder? And that comes down to medical professionals assessing the situation and making a judgment. In this series, we're going to focus on the narcissistic personality disorder. I hope it was clear. All right, let's go. This disorder is acquired during very specific developmental stage of a child's life, which is why there are many pathways to get to this end horrible goal, which is a narcissist. But one thing is extremely constant, and one thing is very uniform here, is that it is linked to something traumatic. It is linked to shame. It is linked to fear. There is always a link that is obviously negative that forces this child to create adaptive traits to cope with their environment. So I'm going to give you a few examples. Let's start with the easiest one. If you have a parent that is a narcissist, most likely one of the children will end up becoming narcissistic or very close to it. Why? Because the narcissists have this feeling of grandeur, right? Like, I am the most beautiful thing ever created, darling. And because of that, you, my child, you must be beautiful like me. You must be the best. You have to be the smartest. You have to have A's all the time. You need to exercise. You need to work out. You're too fat. You're too thin. Not enough muscle. You have to represent the family. Do you know who you are? Right? Imagine what that does to a child who's all they won't care about is to play in the mud and eat bonbons off the mud. Right? Imagine what that does to a child. That everything about them is conditional. I'll give you another example. The image of the family as a whole have to be specific on the outside. Inside the household, it might be crap, right? There's physical abuse going on, there's verbal abuse going on, but as soon as a guest arrives, all right, the house needs to be speck clean. There needs to be this image portrayed to the world from the narcissistic parent that the entire family members have to follow, right? Sit up straight, dress up nice, you're too fat, look better, you got to make me look good. That child becomes an extension of the parent. In other words, the parent is living vicariously through you as a child. And what you don't understand, or maybe you do, a kid doesn't give a damn. A child doesn't care. A child does not care. Doesn't care about what they look. All they care about is, when am I going to play? When am I going to go outside and hang out with my friends? Can I get some candy? What is this mess about having to look nice all the time when we go outside? The second way narcissists are made is another simple one. When you have parents who are just like over-adoring, like, oh my God, my daughter is so beautiful. Look how gorgeous she is. She's so amazing. When you have your parents just doubting on you, just putting everything on you, you're the best thing ever, it does something to you. Exactly. Now, you might say to yourself, but mom and dad is just being very supportive. But no, because one thing that is very important when you are a kid, when you are developing, when you are a developing child, you need to experience the spectrum of what life is. Disappointment, anger, self-regulation, self-soothing. You need to experience it all. You cannot be in a sheltered bubble. You have to know what it's like to scrub. You have to know what it's like to be polite. You have to know what it's like to be considerate. The world does not revolve around you. You need someone, your parents need to teach you that this life, my daughter, this life, my dear, it's not about you. It's not all about you. Relationship is give and take. You have to give and you also have to take. If they are not taught that, they're just going to roam around this earth thinking that they're the best thing since sliced bread. By the way, sliced bread is awful. I'm sorry. Look, side note. When I came to the US and we experienced American bread for the first time, we were like, what is this? What is this? Side note. Anyway, being told all the time that they're amazing and they're great, even when they're not, it's like, no, not everybody's a winner. And I got news for you. Just because you do your best thing, just because you put in your best effort, you could fail. And nobody gives a crap. Nobody cares if you are the best thing ever. That is a reality. Shielding your kids from the fact that, look, honey, you didn't go to school, therefore you got an F. All right, oh well, right? But instead, if you're like, what? My child got an F? No, my child is the smartest thing ever. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to show that teacher up, and he's going to give me an A, right? That is not good. Because the child is important for their development to experience the spectrum of life, which is, there's other people here, darling. So have a seat and say sorry and find your way. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah. The same extreme could be said for the other side. I think it's important that you don't always be so negative towards your child. You got to have a right balance. And I know it sounds like ridiculous, right? It's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But no, the truth of the matter is that you have to lead by example, number one. So if you tell your kid, clean your room, that means you also clean your environment, right? And if you scold your child for not cleaning their room, then you scold yourself for not cleaning the environment. There needs to be consistency. Kids these days, kids, they're developing. This is crucial age. This is why they gather what it's like to be living in this society. And you as a parent, you're the only one that they can really trust. You have to cherish that trust. You have to really cherish that trust. And that's how narcissists are made. Narcissists are made is when that trust is not carefully molded and catered to. Now, you might be wondering, oh my God, Alistair, please, my parents, they smacked me all the time. They told me I sucked all the time, but I turned out to be okay. Which then we get to my next point. There's a genetic point to it. Of course, before I got into the fitness industry, I was starting to become a geneticist. And genetics is a big mystery. It really is still a very big mystery on a lot of fronts, especially when it comes to personalities. There's definitely some people who are more conducive, more genetically prone to this disorder. Of course. So yes, maybe you don't fall into all that spectrum of like, well, I was treated this way, but then I'm not sure. But there's also a hidden component, which is genetic aspect of it. Some people are genetically prone to be a certain kind of way. And I would not put it past that. Some people are more prone to have narcissistic personality disorder. We have at least a grosso modo idea of how they're made, right? We have a little concept. It's not perfect, but at the end of the day, we know that it has to do, it interferes, it's an interference in the developmental stage of a child. It is highly correlated with interpersonal relationship between a parent and a child. And 3, there's a genetic component to it as well that we cannot factor out. So what is narcissistic personality disorder? There are people who believe that they are the smartest, the most beautiful, that they need to be a certain kind of way. They have to be the richest. And if they cannot get that, they have to portray that image. People with that personality disorder, people with narcissistic personality disorder are exhausting, and they are also exhausted because they are not really happy with themselves. Because if you go back to their developmental stage, they skipped the beat. They never really got to be kids. They never really got to experience the silliness and etc. etc. So they are stuck. They are mentally stuck. And it's not working. I don't know why I'm doing it, but you best believe that they feel it. They're very well aware of it. Because shame is an emotion that is correlated to the realization that what you have is not what you think you have. Once you understand those two dots, shame. And if you understand shame, that means you're smart enough to understand and have enough self-perception to know that you ain't it. And that creates a feeling of inferiority. They're even unsure about the image they portray. So they are constantly spinning stories about like, oh my God, it's so amazing. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's all about the image. It's all about what others see. Because their perception of themselves, the true reflection is that of this child who never got to experience childhood. And that hurts them. They want to feel loved. They want to feel hugged. They want to feel wanted. It's almost like it's that child that is screaming at that parent, please love me unconditionally. What must I do? Please love me, love me. That is at the core the insecurity of someone with a narcissistic personality disorder. And because reality is the ultimate equalizer, that parent that they're so longing for doesn't care. And therefore they could never get what they are longing for. And so they are constantly creating stories, constantly spinning, constantly adding onto their image, constantly adding more, constantly progressing. And the consequences of that, because, you know, these people have interpersonal relationship with friends, co-workers. The consequence is that someone would say, can I see proof of that? Someone would ask more questions. Yes. Someone would ask more questions. People would want to try to dig deeper, dive deeper, ask more, not because they're nosy, because they're interested at the story that person is spinning. They expect you to treat them the way they want you to see them. And you best believe that creates problems, right? It creates problems in their relationship. Honey, I'm the best thing ever. Why aren't you telling me I'm the best? Why aren't you having sex with me all the time? Don't you like this? Don't you like this? Don't you want this? Right? Right? It creates a situation with their friends. They're not caring. They're not sharing. They are not considerate. They tell you whatever the hell they want. It's all about them. It's all about what they want. Nobody wants to be around that. Oh, please. They want you to show up to their birthday. They want you to show up to their kid's birthday, but they never show up to yours. They never make the extra mile for you, but they want you to do the extra mile for them. Because in their mind, they are God's gift. They are better than you. Therefore, you must want to be near them. How could you not? How could you not? And be in their mind, in the story, in the shell that they create, because they are above you. You are not worthy of their presence if they don't feel like it. That's why you will always be secondhand. You will always be second guessed by them. They're not that interested because it's all about them and the image they are portraying. If you are not conducive to the image that they want to portray, you are useless to them. Because if it's not about the image, then it's about nothing at all. Let's bring that scenario to work. They will step all over you. If they want a promotion, they will. Because if it's not about them, it doesn't matter. And let me tell you something. The words you say to a narcissist doesn't hurt them at all. You could tell them they're terrible. Oh, well. You could tell them they're awful. All right. You're terrible. You don't like me. Okay. You don't love me. All right. You don't want me. Okay. Please, you think they care? They don't care. Until and unless when you pierce their shell and enter into the true stratosphere, when you get to see a narcissist for who they are, now that is dangerous. You know why it's dangerous? because you've seen too much, and you can then now start telling people what the deal is. And then you can unravel the years of story spinning, storytelling. You could dismantle it all. And that becomes very dangerous depending on the type of narcissistic person you're dealing with. Because they could either ghost you, so they cut you out of their life, and they cut you out of the life of their circle, so you can never have the opportunity to speak. They prevent you from controlling the narrative. That's fairly quite easy to do if you're a coworker or if you're an acquaintance. You know, I don't have to for it. I still have to watch what I say. I don't know why I'm keep talking to this mic. I still have to watch what I say because YouTube is my boss. And I don't want to be fired. Now, if you're a spouse, a close friend, a lover, it's a different story. It's harder to cut you off. If you're children, it's harder to cut you off because you are so entwined into almost all facets of their lives. They can't easily ghost you without you talking a separate narrative to what their shell is. So what do? Do they get rid of you? Do they abuse you so hard? Do they intimidate you? What did they do to make sure you don't speak a single word of their truth? It depends. It depends on the type of narcissist you're dealing with. Oh, it truly depends. But make no mistakes, there's two options. If you peer into the true self of a narcissist, there are two options available for you. One, you get ghosted. Lucky you, to be very honest. Thank God you escaped. Two, you get assaulted. You're in danger. And let me tell you something. If someone put hands on you, if anybody put a finger on you, even a scratch, my darlings, dangerous. Because there's nothing but escalation from there. It could be a friend. It doesn't matter who it is. Don't touch me. And if they make the mistake to do it, take action. Disappear. Cut it off. It's not even a discussion. Do you understand? And I know there are literally a lot of situations where Stockholm Syndrome is real. But don't let it get to Stockholm Syndrome. Run. Run. Hey, small little break. Look, I'm making it very informal. I'm taking the phone, bringing it close to my face. Because if you like this video, if you like the content, any content at all that I make, support me by pressing the like button, comment, interact with the video, and better yet, share it. Now that is love. Thank you. The overt narcissist. That's one of the easy ones, believe it or not. That's the one that's like very outgoing. It's all about they're like the party of the town, the party of the night. It's all about them, la 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 la. So if you're married to one of them, you know, and if you're friends with one of them, they might just ignore you. That's the narcissist that's most likely to ghost you or not care, and then you get divorced and they'd be like, sure, whatever, whatever. Like that's the one you want to be with if you're going to be with any narcissist. Them. Then you have the covert narcissist. Now that's the one who pretends like, oh, I lost my car yesterday and I wasn't sure what to do and I walked for 1,000 miles and now I need a car to go home. Can I borrow your car? Right? That's the one who would give you the sub story about why they've lost their car, but they need your car to go drive somewhere. And that's them. They're also harmless in terms of you'll survive. If you deal with them, you'll survive. Most likely you'll survive. Yeah. They'll just take their little act and pretend it's somewhere else, someone who will buy it. Now, the one that you most likely will not survive from is a malignant narcissist. Now, these are the ones who are dangerous. These are the ones where you cross them, you need to go. Forget ghosting. You need to disappear. You need to be removed from the equation at all costs. You need to be pummeled. They get enjoyment from seeing you suffer. Not once, not twice, seeing you eternally suffer. They get a rush of adrenaline when they see you beg and grovel for forgiveness. These are the ones where if you peer into their true self, you are in danger. You are in danger. You're in danger. Because they are overly consumed with this rage of how dare you defy me? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? I made you. Thanks to me, you are this. How dare you go against me? Do you know what I've done for you? No, I will never let this go. You must perish. And they will do everything in their power to make sure that happens. Malignant narcissist people are a special breed. First of all, that's what my dad is. Second of all, it takes someone with cojones and ovaries to stand up to them, because they are very overbearing and they will use everything at their disposal to make it happen. May the best man or woman win. If you're dealing with a malignant narcissist, don't let that go. You must fight. You must, because ghosting is not enough for them. You must fight for your life. There is an interesting ability that nobody really speaks about when it comes to people that are narcissists or that have the narcissistic personality disorder. They have a very keen sense of emotional intelligence. They are able to sense who they can spin that story to. They're able to detect who is vulnerable enough to buy their BS. Because they depend on your naivete to give them praises. Because their idea of grandeur is only as good if people buy it. They don't play this big game. They don't play this grandeur stuff. They don't play all this story. In front of people that can see right through it, they don't waste their time. They waste their time with people they know they can easily enthrall. And that takes very, very cunning emotional intelligence. It does. It's not easy. It's not easy to walk into a room and read precisely who you're going to go to and pick your victim. It's not easy. It's hard. It's hard. It's very hard. Emotional intelligence is a skill, but they tend to figure this out. And I suspect the reason why they have this very good cunning ability to do that is because while they were growing up, they had to be able to read their parent to the T, to be able to accommodate, to be able to react, to be able to provide the conditions required by that parent to feel loved. So they had to adapt to their environment, and that adaptation is part of being emotionally intelligent enough to pinpoint who, what, where, how. Okay. Just a thought. All right. So for the recap, it's very simple. There is a distinct difference between narcissism and someone with narcissistic personality disorder, but we use them interchangeably because in order to have that difference, a doctor or a medical professional have to give you the diagnosis. But because most of the time that's very unlikely for you to know for sure, so we use those words interchangeably. But the big difference between the two really is that one has a mental disorder and the other one doesn't. A simple narcissist is just an a-hole. And the other one is an a-hole with some serious problem. Okay, darling? So that's the thing. Now, how they are made, grosso modo idea, it has everything to do with the developmental stage of the child in relation to their connection or any interpersonal connection / relationship with their parents or caretaker. Right? That's one aspect. The second aspect is the environment that they're growing in. That's also very important. But no matter how you slice it, it all comes down to a single point, which is trauma, reaction to trauma, adaptation to trauma. Something is going on consistently through a very stressful environment that is forcing this organism, aka this child, to adapt to a specific trauma. Okay? And then, of course, the last point is that based on how this young child goes into this young adult, goes into a full-fledged adult, the summary outcome of that trauma equates a certain type of narcissist, right? So you have the malignant, the covert, etc., right? And then you are set based on that equalization dictates how you most likely are going to be, right? So for part 2, here's what I'm going to talk to you about. I'm going to talk to you about how every single narcissist communicates. Because even though there's so much difference, etc., the similarity that they all have is that they're insecure. And because of the insecurity, they cannot just act like me and you. I'm going to show you in part 2 a way how they really move. And it's going to be very, very entertaining. I'm going to base all this on my experience. Speaking of experience, let's go to this last part, which is let's talk about... I messed that up. Oh, forget it. I'm not redoing this. Next time, which is let's talk about my story. All right. So look, a lot of my current viewers, my subscribers, you guys know my story, my dad. Matter of fact, we experienced, well, you have had a small experience of the final stages with the divorce between my mom and my father, because I met you last year, but this saga between the divorce of my parents have been going on since 2016. 2016 is when my mom filed for divorce, because in 2016 is when my father, actually, the malignant narcissist, went ahead and choked her for the purpose of killing her. And she was alone with him. He had a fit. He went over to her room. He had no idea I was on the phone because I talked to my mom all the time. He choked her, both hands, and then he said to her, and I heard down the phone, I'm going to kill you, then I'm going to kill myself. And then my mom struggled, and then the room went silent, and then my father just let go. And of course, during this time, I mean, we were on the phone call. We called 911. The police came. But when the police came, she had 10 marks on her neck, my mother, right? And my father was like, I'm just doing the dishes. Hello, nice to see you. Oh, don't worry about it. Now, this idiot was acting like the police were stupid. And again, he was talking. Why am I talking like this? Anyway, he was talking as if the police is stupid enough not to see the marks. They're just going to let him go. Just to give you an idea. But to stay in topic of this first video, I don't know why I look left. What did I look left for? There's a ghost in here. There's a ghost. It's my dad. No, please. He wouldn't dare. Anyway, so look. To stay in the spirit of this topic, I'm going to share with you my dad's childhood story and what I think is what made him the narcissist that he is. I am originally from Cameroon. I am an African immigrant. My parents were born in Cameroon, and they experienced the civil war in Cameroon. So already, just be very clear, the environment was not quite peaceful. But I'm going to focus on my father here, and I'm going to go back to my grandfather. But I have to give you a little bit of context first. At the time, women were property. They were not allowed to own anything. They were literally child baby machines. And if you are married to a woman and you pass away, that woman is free floating. And so tradition dictates that the woman then has to go to the next kin. So the woman and her children and all the property or any assets related to the man goes to the next of kin of the husband. Does that make any sense? So in other words, if you die, your brother takes your wife and kid and your assets. The next of kin, the next one. And that's important because let's just say if there was no next of kin, then what happens is the chief, everything, including the woman and the children, belongs to the chief of the village. Now, I need to be very clear. If you are a woman and you get transferred to the next man, you are being assaulted. You're being assaulted. It was just expected that the moment you arrive, you are being assaulted. You know exactly what I mean. You know exactly what I mean. My grandmother, the mother of my father, was not married to my grandfather. She was married to the brother of my grandfather. My grandfather was not a nice man, and he wanted my grandmother. All of a sudden, the brother of my grandfather passed away, disappears. No body, no nothing, disappears. My grandmother runs away to the chieftain, in French they call it chefferie, which is like the barracks, not barrack, like a barrack for military, but it's a chieftain barrack. So it's a stronghold of the chief. It's a big court with all the wives, all the stolen wives, right? It's a big court, huge court. She runs there for protection because the rule is, when you get there, you can't act a fool. Anyway, the chieftain says, the law is the law. Tradition is tradition. This is your husband. Grab your kids. She didn't have any kids at the time. Grab your kids, and this now is your husband. That same night, my grandmother was RAPE. And from that RAPE came my father. Now, you might ask yourself, what happened to the brother of my grandfather? Well, there's another piece of this puzzle. My grandfather was a businessman, and he was dealing in a particular type of business that dealt with people. I'll give you a hint. Officially, it was ended in 1875. Unofficially, it ended at the end of World War I. And that's as far the records go. But from first-hand accounts, it continued until 1961. Well, beyond 1961, which marks the independence of Cameroon from being a colony. You put the dots together, you figure out what type of business my grandfather was in. And because he was in that business, resulted in his brother, so the brother of my grandfather, from disappearing, which in turn resulted in my grandmother being transferred to my grandfather. You're smart. You can figure this out, what kind of business, shady dealings he was into over there in Cameroon. Now I want to bring you into the household, and this I know for a fact because my grandmother spoke with such disdain about her husband. Spoke to who? My mother. My mother spoke not only her dialect, she spoke my father's dialect, she spoke French. My mother is educated. So, in the household, my grandfather had 4 wives. Only one of them was his true wife. The other 3 were stolen. And he had 1 child with his official wife. He had many with my grandmother. 1, 2, 3, 4. He had 5 with my grandmother. And he had 2 with the one more other wife, and then the last one, 3. Sorry, but they were all prisoners. They were all prisoners in that compound, in that court. They were prisoners. Each wives had a little house. It wasn't a hut. I call it a hut because I'm an idiot. No, it wasn't a hut. It was a house, a little house. And in the center was his house. He didn't even sleep with them in the same place. And the children's room were in his house. The women had their own little gîte, as they call it. And every night, one of them was assaulted, or APE. Every night. He never touched his own wife. Every night. How do I know that? My grandmother spoke about it, because when my grandfather passed away, every single wives took their kids and ran away. All of my other extensive grandmother took their children and they ran away. They did not want to be passed around anymore. They ran away. We reconnected with them when I was still a little goober, maybe 11 or 10, but that's a true story. And my grandmother was the only one who stayed in that court. Only one. And she said if she had the strength, she would run, but she had no strength. She had 5 kids. Where is she going to go? She was just sitting there waiting to be passed around again. So, to stay in context of the story, my father, imagine what he experienced. A father who is extremely abusive to all the women, including, if he was abusing the women, you think he was nice to his children? Not at all. Someone who was not nice to the community unknown. And there's a 4th part. And I don't know exactly on those details, but I'm going to speculate. Is that my grandfather took a liking to my father. And he would take my father a lot of his business deals. What happened there? No idea. They would be gone for weeks, for days. No idea. They would come back. No idea. They would never speak about it. I can suspect is that my grandfather saw something in my father. It was like, I need an heir. I need someone to take over this business. And took my father along with him. So it is no wonder my father turned out to be a malignant narcissist, because everything everywhere around him, he witnessed his dad being abusive in public more than once. What do you think that does to a child? Yeah. It does not excuse his behavior, because Dad, if you're watching, I still have the champagne bottle in the fridge. I'm waiting for it. You're way too healthy. Darn it. Anyway. That's it. That's the story. Again, if you like this, please press like. It helps the algorithm. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. I'm going to continue the series for as long as I can think of subjects to talk about. But if you have any ideas, please write in the comments below. Let me know a little bit of what specific topics you want me to explore, and I'll see if I can collaborate that with my experiences. And maybe, of course, do a little bit of research here and there. Come on. Of course. And then talk about it, right? Thank you. I love you for watching, even you guys. I love you in a non-homo way. I love you in a non-homo way. I have to say that for any hetero male who watched this, right? They must be like, oh my God, black guy saying I love you. Relax, okay? Relax. I'm not making you a narcissist, right? I love you in a non-homosexual way. What's wrong with that? Have a seat. Anyway, bye.